Good night, good night, everyone. Doing tonight. God is good and God is good all the time. This is a continue of Psalms 27. I'm sorry about the cutoff. So David wrote this song. And David did not have, he didn't have no fear. He put all his confidence in God. Now, he was running from Saul. He didn't have no fear of Saul because David was worked in the field. He used to tear on animals over his hand. He tore that giant down, and guess what he did? He took the giant head off with his hands. So he didn't fear Saul. He didn't want to hurt Saul. So David had many enemies was chasing him at one time or another. Now he was no stranger to danger. Everyone kept on wanting to attack him. But he also knew that God was powerful and knowledgeable enough, to watch over him, that God could interfere at any time. You know, so so God could intervene at any time. Now he know that God had a plan for his life. Because remember, he was a young boy. Samuel had anointed him to be king. You know, and he had so many brothers. But God did not want his brothers. God wanted David. So he was still in the field. So when he came out, God told Samuel, that's him right there. So God told him, you're going to be the king. You're going to be a leader. You're going to be a ruler. You're going to be all these things over the Israelites. Now, it took a long time. That's why he wrote this song, to wait on the Lord. It took a long time. It took 20 years. But guess what? He was a leader, a ruler, and everything else over the Israelites. And when that time came, that long wait came, he was out there celebrating, dancing. When his wife was in the window, just booted up and mad. Why you're excited? It took you 20 years. No matter, David ain't matter how long it took. It came. His blessing came. His promotion came. Everything had came for him. So it was a celebration for him. So he wrote this song to tell everyone, to wait on the Lord. He waited on the Lord. He remembered the words that God told him. Joseph remembered the words, the dream that God had put in him. That he was going to be all those things. And he had waited on the Lord. And Joseph were all those things that God said he was going to be before he died. David was all those things that God said he was going to be. Even though his wife didn't agree, she all mad and booted up, but it was a celebration for David. So God had a plan for him, and God knew, and he knew that God had that interest at heart. So a lot of times we get mad. We go through so much, to get to where we need to get to. But just like David said, God had the best interest in him, the best interest of heart. Meaning God cared. It might not seem that way. When we going through all the hard time and everything. Now David said he went through hard time. He went through running from Saul. He went through battle to battle. Because as he kept on running from Saul, he still was working for God. God said, what you doing in the cave? I need you to go here. So he was still working for God. He was still praying for God. He was still holding on. He was still holding on because he was waiting on God. Because he kept on remembering the words that God had told him. You're going to be a leader in the kingdom. All these years is passing by. But he was still waiting on the Lord. So he knew that God had best interest in heart. And this regular statement of trust. Trust. That's the main thing David keep talking about, trust and waiting on the Lord. That's the two things you can always need. When you on a journey for God and you working for God, these are three things that we need to trust God, have faith, and wait on the Lord. That's the three things that you need. Now he put his faith in the hands of God. That who will be his stronghold. God is our stronghold. God is our strength. God is our doctor. God is our lawyer. God is our healer. God is all these things. You know, nobody else can take the place of God. You know, even though it might take a long time, even though the pain, you know, I'm in the mix of it. So I know how David felt, you know, but it all worked at the end. Because he got blessed, he got promotion, he had got everything that God said he was going to be. You know, so in Psalms 27:1, the Lord is my shepherd. You know, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Who should I fear? You know, so that's what David said. David said the Lord is his light, you know, and his salvation. So if God is all these things, you know, who I can fear? You know, so that's why David wrote this song, you know, fearless. You know, he waited on the Lord. You know, he know he was hot in that cage and all this stuff. God still come right there, but I need you to go in there. Meaning God was watching over him. No matter what he was at, you know, he was still working for God. Even on the run. He on the run and still was working for God. You know, God tell him to go to a place where his enemies at the next step. You know, because he know God was gonna protect him. God is gonna guide him. You know, if God gonna send you over there, you know, where your enemies is fighting you at, you know, he ain't had no fear. If God saw him there, he know God was gonna protect him. So that's what he was saying. He ain't have no fear. You know, he had trust in God. He had confidence in God. He believed in God, and he kept on waiting. You know, so who should I fear? So the Lord is a stronghold of his life. Of whom should I be afraid? You know, so that's what he's saying. God is the stronghold of his life. You know, he said, who I can be afraid of? You know, I'm not afraid of Saul. I'm running because I don't even want to hurt Saul. He respects Saul. You know, remember he lived under Saul. You know, he can kill Saul with his hands. So he did not fear Saul. You know, he was saving Saul's life. You know, so we can learn from David. You know, one key of facing our fear. You know, that David escaped the pressure of fear and warfare. You know, by retreating into God's holy presence in the tabernacle. You know, so he proclaimed that I will sing and make music to the Lord. And you know, that's all David did. You know, when that time came for him to be the king and the ruler over Israel, he was dancing, he was singing, he was celebrating. You know, so that's what he said. He always sang and make music to the Lord. Now, he wrote so many songs. He made so many songs for the Lord. You know, he was the only one besides his sister, I guess it runs in the family, was singing and dancing. You know, singing and dancing, praising to the Lord. You know, 27:6. You know, so then my head will be exalted above the enemy who surround me at his table like I will sacrifice, with shout of joy. And that's what he was doing out there. You know, when he got his promotion and everything, he was out there shouting, he was dancing, he was singing. You know, it just was a celebration. Even though, some people be mad, take 20 years, and then you come with the answer, and then some people will be mad. David was not mad. David was happy and he was celebrating because he had to wait on the law. And see, what he's telling us, when you wait on the law, God is watching. He saw that David was waiting. So he gave David exactly what he said he was going to give David. So then my head, he said his head will be exalted above the enemy, who surround me. So at his tabernacle, I will sacrifice and shout for joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Now, he always was making music to God. Always was writing. All these songs is dedicated to God. Like this one here. He letting us know he waited on the Lord. God said you going to be a ruler. And he letting us know he waited. Even though he had to wait 20 years, he waited on the Lord. The word stuck to him. Because he's saying, if God made a promise to you, wait on it. Wait on it. And praise and worship, can help to take your mind off of your fear and facing our thought on powerful God. You know, see, a lot of time, I'm talking to myself. I'm still in the mix of my storm. You know, when you in your storm and you going through so much hard, I know you see I cry and everything, but guess what? I calm down, you know. See, the Bible, you know, my Bible, and God is my healer. You know, when you're going through so much bad time, you know, you have to think about the good things that God done. It's supposed to outweigh your negative stuff that is going on. And see, your negative stuff, it can be so painful, you know, so painful. But once you think about the good things that God has done in your life, you know, it's supposed to outweigh the negative stuff. And then you can start focus back on what you're supposed to be focused on. And always, you know, read that Bible. You know, I read mine every day. You know, I have to read and put the practice together. You know, a lot of time I'm always reading Psalms 91:23. You know, that's the two main ones right there. You know, so David also remind us to wait for the Lord. You know, be strong. While you waiting, you have to be strong. You know, and take heart and wait for the Lord. And that's 27:14. You know, you're gonna have some hard time. And a lot of time, you know, you're spiritual divine, you know, or either you just under God, you know, you're gonna deal with spiritual warfare. That's what David said earlier. You're dealing with spiritual warfare. You know, he had to get close and connected with God. That's the only way, you know, you can deal with spiritual warfare. You know, and so he waited for the Lord. He said, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. And you know, that's pretty much the whole package of Psalms 27. He constantly telling us to wait on the Lord. You know, because you know, he waited 20 years before he was a king. You know, before he got fully blessed. You know, he was blessed before he got fully blessed. You know, until he got in position. You know, so though God answer, you know, may not come or how we expect, you know, but we can trust that he is a faithful God. You know, stick to his word, you know, than ever anyone else that close to us. He'll be faithful to us. He was faithful to David. You know, even though David was running okay, God was still right there watching her. Because God will come right there and say, you know, okay, I need you to work over here. I need you to go here and there. He was still working. Because as he kept on running from Saul, he still was gaining no wives and stuff. While he left his wife, you know, he married Saul's daughter. You know, so he left the wife at home and he gained up more wives, you know. So he pretty much was still living life and still was working for God. You know, so pain and suffering and struggling, you know, God will surround us with his love. You know, he kept on popping up on David. You know, he was still showing his love for David, you know, still caring for David, still watching over David. You know, so a lot of time we in our pain and suffering and struggling, you know. And a lot of times you feel abandoned, you feel alone. You know, just like David, he just kept on running from here and there. Left the wife at home and just kept on running here and there. You know, and he kept on feeling alone, being on the run all the time. But every time you look around, God was right there. Be right there the whole time, watching over us. You know, and while we going through the pain and suffering, we always say, why God allowed us to go through the pain and suffering? You know, when he feel like we had enough, you know, sometimes he'll jump in. Just like with Job. Job went through so much. After he did all his losses, then the devil started working on him, his health, and everything else. You know, and he was just, his friends, his wife could not recognize him because of all the pain and suffering. You go through so much pain and suffering, but you still, just like Job, still waiting on God. His journey was so many years too. Joseph still waiting on God. David still both almost 20 years, but they're still waiting on God. So in spite of anything that can happen, you know, God will be there for us. You know, who trusts in Him, you'll find safety. For our soul. Because we can always ask God to heal our heart, body, and soul. And He will do that. He will do that. Who trusts in Him find safety for our soul. Now, since that is the case, whom on earth should we fear? But we do. Not all of us, but some of us will still fear. Not fear too much, but still worry when we have the mighty God by our side. So that's what David was saying. He did not fear. As long as he knew he had the mighty God on his side watching over him. He kept on holding on because God promised something to him. And he said, God promised to him, he said, I'm going to wait on the Lord to receive it. And that's just what he did. He waited on God to receive what God had said he was going to give him. He said David was going to be blessed. He said David was going to be a king over the Israel. He was going to be a leader. It took 20 years, but he was all those things that God said he was going to be because he had waited on the Lord. And that's what he's telling us, to wait on the Lord. And you remember Sarah? God had promised something pretty much not to Sarah, but he made that promise to Abraham, and he told his wife, she got impatient. It was like 20 years at that. She said, how am I be a mother of the nation, and I haven't had no children yet? She took matter in her own hands and helped her slave girl to have sex with her husband and produce a baby that she wanted so bad. If God said you're going to be a mother of the nation, he know you got to produce a child to be the mother of the nation, but she could not wait. And see, that's what David was saying. Don't jump ahead of ourselves. We have to wait. Because a lot of times we can't go before God. God always go ahead of us. And we have to stand still and wait on Him. And that's what David was saying. We can't go ahead of God. David waited on God. Even in the mix of his pain and suffering, his struggling, his running, and, fighting the enemies. David went through all that and still waited on God. So that's all the word I have for you on today. So we also talk about this massive shooting. We constantly keep on getting all this shooting and just going around just shooting people. And it's just so many this year. The year has just started, and we haven't all just shooting like this. And they're saying the person had mental health. So I don't understand how mental health is purchasing all these guns like this. So they're saying nothing being done. The leaders not doing anything. The leaders cannot stop all this shooting. All we can do is constantly put policies together that will stick, that will work. And it's a process. I create the policy in either GOP or either Congress. They put it together in writing, and it become a law. But it's a process. We have to I ban all the stores. I ban the stores to stop selling assault weapons and stop selling guns to young ages. I boost the age to 20 years old. 20 years old, and enforce a background check. We have to check for all these things, because we can start doing a background check. Put this policy into place. If we can start checking for background check, we can check if they have mental health. If they ever, was charged with a crime before. We can start checking for all these things. And then the stores have to proceed, follow these procedures, and that way we can carry, a lot of lives can be saved. A lot of lives can be saved. Because of too many mental health is purchasing these guns. So we have to try to stop that, and it only starts It only start with policies that gonna stick, that will work. You know, because a lot of these policies was way back then. And you know, I'm updating a whole lot of policy. And then they said, we don't need no policy in there. We need to stop these guns. But we can't stop the guns. We don't know when a sick person or when he's going to strike again. You know, all we can do is try to get these guns off the street. And the way they buying these guns is from the stores or either trapping it on the streets. So that's why we trying to do this here this way. And it take time and process getting it done. You know, and we also talk about David. You know, long as he had God on his side, he did not fear. He was fearless. You know, he waited on the Lord. When God had a message, God had promised something to you, he's saying, wait on the Lord. It'll be worth it at the end. Because he was dancing and he was shouting. He was celebrating. He had a festival going on. You know, he was happy. Even though it took a long time, he still was happy because he waited on the Lord and he received what God said he was going to give him and what he said what God was going to do in his life. He had a purpose on his life, but he wasn't in position until after 20 years. You know, so that's all the word and news I have for you on tonight. Y'all have a blessed night, and I'll see y'all on the next video.